You this morning, and I hope you enjoyed that extra hour of sleep. I woke up a little early just to notice and then went back to sleep, and it was wonderful. It was wonderful. So welcome to the Unity of Charlotte, where our mission is to nurture a deep and mature experience of God through the practice of unity principles. Simply put, we are here to love, grow, and serve. I'm Reverend Pat Dre, and I'm so glad you chose to join us here from all over Charlotte and areas north. We have two wonderful guests, Joyce and Shireen. So afterwards, we welcome you now, and we'll chat with you afterwards. Thank you. We're going to start today's service by sharing our statement of oneness, and that will lead us into our opening prayer. There is one presence and one power in my life and the universe, God, good omnipotence. So it is my pleasure this morning to know the truth. And one of the things I have been thinking and pondering about is the area of guilt and regret. You know, emotions serve us in many fine ways, but there are some other areas where if we get too stuck or we perseverate, it can be very difficult. And so in thinking about the issue of regret and guilt, they can motivate us to become more of who we actually are. And that's always an okay thing. But if we perseverate on things that happened in our past, we may find that we are stuck in the negative and our perception of ourselves becomes less accurate and less positive. And so thoughts are things. If you have regrets in your life, if you have certain things from your old past, I encourage you to remember how valuable thoughts are, especially when we turn them around from the negative. And it's a simple thing to do. You acknowledge what the regret, the embarrassment, or the guilt is, and you you locate what the source of that regret is. And then you move into noticing how much you've grown, how much you've changed, and that's where you stay. How much you've changed and grown and become. And when that becomes your focus, then you are practicing the principle of knowing that thoughts are powerful, they are creative, and they allow you to be the divine you. Today we're going to do the daily word on grateful. So just take a breath, relax into your chair, and let it go. Let your shoulders come down, and just know with me what I say out loud for you. I begin and end each day in gratitude. Today, I view the world through a lens of gratitude, and I practice it in every chance I get. I look around my house and I give thanks for this home of warmth, of security, and of love. I remember with gratitude the people who encouraged and supported me and the many opportunities that came my way. Instead of reflexively saying thanks to the many people who have helped me throughout the day, I pause. I pause to deeply appreciate their efforts. And right now, I let one person pop into my mind right now. And I take a moment to say thank you to them. Thank you for being a divine presence in my life, for touching me and my soul so deeply, and for helping me along the way. By making time for gratitude, I begin to feel my energy shift and my body respond. I'm lighter, filled with new energy, brimming with hope. I choose to start each day feeling grateful for what is, what has been, and for what each day will bring. I now begin and end every day in grateful prayer. I will give thanks to the Lord with my whole heart. Psalms. And now for our opening song, I Trust in God, and please stand and join our wonderful choir. Beautiful, and thank you, choir. And thank you, Patricia, for the many hours of service you've given us. And you heard that choir so well. And we thank you. We thank you. We thank the choir. For our announcements, Fred has concluded his class, and we hope to have you back in the spring, Fred. We appreciate the class on principles. We have another town hall meeting coming up on November 14th, which is next Sunday. Do I have that right? It is next Sunday. And it's going to be immediately following the service, both live and Zoom. We look forward to having this. This is the second in our series this fall, and we have a major topic to bring to you, which is our ministerial search and the tremendous progress we have made and we are making. So I know you're going to want to hear that, plus a few more updates. So please join us however you can in hearing the latest and greatest from Unity. The book club meets on November 21st at 11:30 a.m. on Zoom to discuss Eric Butterworth's classic, Living in the Flow. The affirmative prayer meets Tuesday evenings at 7:15 on Zoom, and it is a wonderful gathering. It sets the tone for my week, and also it sets the tone for a very large vision for Unity of Charlotte, for the greater Charlotte area, and for the world. The Path of Initiation meets on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. via Zoom, and it is a wonderful class with Lucille Cedar-Cran's book, The Path of Initiation, and it flows so beautifully from Myrtle Fillmore's Healing Letters. The men's group meets in person at the church on the second and fourth Wednesdays, and the Course in Miracles meets Thursday morning at 9:30 on Zoom. You can find those links at our website, unityofcharlotte.org. And now join me in an affirmation for our minister. Together, we affirm that we are calling in and are ready to receive another wonderful minister who is heart-centered, wise, sincere, humorous, and collaborative, and who openly walks a spiritual path of love, growth, and service. And so it is. And here it is a special day for us. We have Reverend Robin Volker with us. We always appreciate her extraordinary messages, her passion, and her deep understanding of the principles of unity and new thought. So, Reverend Robin, we are delighted to have you with us to talk about Turn, Turn, Turn. Welcome. Good to have you.
Thank you so much, Reverend Pat. Today, it is Turn, 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 take 2, because we tried to do this in October and it just didn't work out. But I really have a passion for this message, and it's so appropriate for the autumn time that I just didn't want to miss the opportunity to bring it to you this fall. So thank you, Unity of Charlotte, for having me back with you again via Zoom. It touches my heart to continue to receive invitations to be a part of your congregation. We want to talk today about change, that big C word. And we are all experiencing it on some level. I can feel it. It's in the air. We can see it in the grasses and the trees. We had frost this morning at my house, 28 degrees. I don't know what it's like there in Charlotte, but we were chilly. And I am seeing change in the lives of my clients and in the lives of my friends and my family. So I just wanted to share this message about how to deal with change. We have all been through zigs and zags in our lives. And I know if you're like me, your path to unity, to being here present in this congregation and on this Zoom call today, probably had a lot of twists and turns along the way. I know mine certainly did. And with all of the changes that came about in my life, I'd like to tell you that I always looked at those and said, oh, I'm just going to make lemonade out of these lemons. But most of the time, that was not true. Most of the time, I went through change, kicking and screaming and dragging my heels. But I have learned some techniques over the years that have made that a little easier. You may have often heard the saying that the only things that are certain in life are death and taxes. Well, I'm not even so sure about those two. I'm definitely sure about change. We live in a state of impermanence. And when we can lean into that principle of impermanence instead of pushing against it, then we can experience that change with much ease and grace. Let's look at our friends in nature this morning on how to deal with change. I can find a lot of bolstering from our friends in nature. And when I look at these little creatures in nature and how they deal with change, it gives me encouragement to go forward and deal with my own change. Let's start with the hermit crab. I'm sure that when you have gone to the beach, you have seen a few of these little guys. And the hermit crab has no permanent home. So just start right now to think like a little hermit crab. The nature of the hermit crab is to grow. And it finds a shell, it crawls in, it becomes comfortable, it makes itself at home, and then it starts to grow, and that shell becomes uncomfortable. It begins to pinch and itch and scratch, and the little crab knows that it really has very little choice. Do you think that the hermit crab thinks, oh, maybe I'll go on a diet so I can just stay in my comfy home? No, probably not. Do you think it freaks out that it's going to have to crawl out of that shell and zip across the sand and find another more suitable home? How would you feel if you had to put a for sale sign in front of your home today, not knowing where you were going to go tomorrow? And actually, in today's housing market, that's happening to a lot of people. It happened to my neighbor, and it created a tremendous amount of stress. But for the hermit crab is able to trust that when it lets go of that too little home, that it will find another one, and that it will get safely to that new home before it gets washed out to sea or before someone steps on it. What about the tadpole? When I was young, as a child growing up, there was a swampy place down past a corner of our property, and it always grew tadpoles. I was fascinated by them. Think now like a tadpole. The tadpole is playing in the pond, swimming around the algae, and all of a sudden, his tail falls off. What do you think the tadpole does? Does he freak out? Oh no, I can't swim. What am I going to do now? And at the same time, the tadpole's body is changing, and it's starting to get these growths on the bottom of its body. And it has no idea what those growths are or what they are for. But it just goes along, and it trusts. And then one day it discovers that it can climb up on a rock and hop. So it's no longer just confined to swimming in the water. Its life totally changes. And it can hop from rock to rock and on the land and still swim as well. Perhaps the most significant example of change in nature is my friend, the caterpillar. I love the transformation of the caterpillar. She is crawling along on a limb, nibbling a leaf here and there, when she gets the idea to secure herself to a limb, encase herself in a casket, and remain there until she gets another idea. Do you think that caterpillar goes, oh no, I can't possibly not be a caterpillar anymore? She doesn't make a list of reasons why she's not supposed to wrap herself in this cocoon. And then one day, after she has become completely disintegrated into goo and reformed herself, she breaks out of that cocoon and flies free as a beautiful butterfly. When we study the caterpillar, we can be so inspired. Because if fat, fuzzy worms can fly, you and I can do anything that we set our focus on. Nature trusts. But how about us? Do we trust? We all have our moments of not trusting, don't we? Nature has instinct, but humans have reason. And because we have reason, we think we know best. So we initiate judgment in our minds. We initiate judgment that nature doesn't have. And in that judgment, we begin to label what's happening to us as right or wrong, good or bad. Sometimes we reason in unreasonable ways, and we get ourselves caught up in fear and doubt and agony. Life is going to constantly challenge us. Constantly challenge us. And when it does, are we going to slide towards that victim place of, why is this happening to me? Or are we going to turn within and find solace in a different approach? Nature tells us that the more we trust, the less we rust. Now that may sound kind of corny, but what it means is the more we trust, the more we can move with whatever is happening in our lives. The more that we can trust, the more we can lean into the idea that God's good is in the midst of whatever is happening to us. Whatever that might be. The reason we start to feel friction in the midst of change is because we are attached to a specific outcome, and we're trying to steer that change to be what we want it to be. Emmett Fox called that outlining. When we are trying to draw the outline of what we think our lives should look like, instead of being open and receptive to the infilling of God's goodness in surprising and magnificent ways. We've made up our mind we want to go in one direction, but the change is taking us in another direction. Now, I bet that every one of you has been experiencing that at some level in some aspect of your life. It's certainly happening to me. And we are all connected on some level, so it's happening to all of us to a certain extent. We want to go here, but the change is taking us here. Now, we can try to force it to go here, force our lives to go here. We can try to manipulate and control and become clutching to this outcome. But does that work for us? Not usually. Not usually. So today, let's use TURN as an acronym for how to gently and softly release these expectations and become open and receptive to the possibility of things we cannot even see. You may have already figured out that the T stands for trust. We've already talked about that a lot this morning. There is a foundational peace that comes in our lives when we can trust that no matter what is happening in our lives, God is in it. Spirit is in it. The energy of life that is greater than what we can conceive is active and alive in whatever is happening. Whatever's happening in your personal life, to your health, in your relationships, with your finances, with the stock market, with politics, with your church. those things that seem impossible to let go of. These things that we are so attached to are the very things that will bring us power and fulfillment if we can just loosen our grasp on our expectations and trust that this energy of life is going to carry us through. Just like trusting that the water is going to hold us up if we can relax and float into it. We trust that there is a process of change and that change is going to ultimately lead us to good. When we trust, we begin to understand. That's the you in turn. Understand that Spirit will guide us to our next step and the next step after that and the step after that. Just like the tadpole trust that he will be able to use those growths on the bottom of his body to do something wonderful when they fully develop. Just like the hermit crab trust that it will find a new home. And just like the caterpillar trust that once it comes out of that cocoon, something wonderful will emerge. The R stands for rest. Rest in the silence. Rest in your spiritual practice. Rest in your beliefs that there is a higher power that is active and alive in your life. Now, we don't go into the silence to talk to God. That's prayer. We go into the silence to become open and receptive, to learn to listen with a soft heart, not with our ears, not even with our mind, but listen with a soft heart. And one of the reasons that we meditate is so that we can develop more acceptance of whatever it is we have to face in life. In the silence, we find that oneness with God, and we no longer feel like that we are facing whatever is going on all by ourselves. And the more that we can rest in that silent place, the less we have to hold on to a specific outcome. We often resist things we cannot change, and in that resistance, it causes us more suffering. So we trust, we heighten our understanding, and we rest in that silent place. And then the N stands for nurture. Let us nurture ourselves through the changes of life. Instead of having these expectations that we always do things a certain way, when change begins to happen, we have to release our attachment that things are going to unfold the same way all the time. And our part in that is going to be different. The hermit crab is different in its new home. The tadpole is different in the pond than the frog. And the caterpillar is certainly going about life differently than the butterfly. So we nurture ourselves. We be gentle with ourselves. I say that to my clients and my congregants, and they have absolutely no idea what it means to be gentle with themselves. That means that you stop beating yourself up for perceived failures. You stop thinking and saying that you did something wrong that caused this change to occur. You stop blaming yourself or others for that matter, and you cease asking the question, what did I do to cause this? Those are the ways that we beat ourselves up. We torment our minds. So nurture yourself through the process and recognize that change happens. It is inevitable. There is a beginning and an ending to all things. And the more that we can practice acknowledging that and just lean into our experience of whatever is happening, the softer the journey gets. After we put some distance between ourselves and the changing of events in our lives, then we can begin to see the blessings that are coming our way because we were at a particular place at a particular time. You know, if I changed one decision in my life, one itty bitty decision, I would not be here with you today. Any change in my life would have changed the trajectory of my course. And the same is true for you. Every decision that we have made has brought us right here to this moment. Let me tell you a story from the Bible that is about change and resistance and surrender. You probably remember the story of Jacob moving his family to a new land, and they were crossing a river, an extension of the Jordan River. And at being a good master of all of his possessions and people in his life, he sent all of them across the river first to make sure they all got safely to the other side. But before he could cross, darkness fell. So Jacob yelled across the river, "I'm going to spend the night here. I'll come over in the morning. We'll keep going." So he beds down in the darkness on the side of the river. And in his sleep that night, an angel comes to him and wrestles with him all night long. You've probably had nights like that yourself. And Jacob grew tired, and the angel grew tired, and that as dawn began to break in the east, the angel said, "Let me go, let me go." But Jacob said, "I will not let you go until you give me your blessing." That's important. Remember that. So the angel did give Jacob his blessing, and the blessing was that his name would change from Jacob to Israel, and that all his descendants would be blessed and they would prosper. That name change meant that Jacob's nature changed in that moment. So when he crossed the river the next morning, he was not weakened by the struggle, but strengthened because he had a change in consciousness. Now, the striving and the wrestling with the angel is symbolic of the strife and the angst that you and I go through when we are facing change. And the story of Jacob and the angel reminds us that in the midst of change and in the confusion of change, we can and should demand our blessing, demand the goodness of God to be given to us in the midst of no matter what is going on, in the midst of a physical challenge or a breakup or a financial struggle or even a death. Turn becomes trust, understand, rest, and nurture. A young daughter in her 20s came home to visit her mother, and she was exasperated with life. Nothing was going the way she wanted it to go, and she was ready to give up. In her 20s. Now, probably just about everyone that's with me this morning is past that decade of their lives. But we can remember what it was like in our 20s when we thought life was going to be this thing and it ended up being this thing. And you too may have had moments where you felt like giving up. So this daughter is sitting in the kitchen complaining to her mother about everything that's wrong in her life. And our mother waited until this daughter had, let out all of her woes and exhausted herself from the story of what was going wrong in her life. And then the mother gets up without saying a word, goes about the kitchen, collects 3 pots, puts water in 3 pots. And in one pot, she put raw carrots. In another pot, she put a raw egg. And in the third pot, she put ground coffee beans. She sits back down at the table and lets all 3 pots boil for about 10 minutes or so and doesn't say a word. The daughter is becoming a little impatient, but after all, she came home to ask for help. So she's trying to give her mother some leeway here. She doesn't quite know what mom's up to. And after the time was up, the mom gets up. She ladles the carrots out and puts those in a bowl. She takes the egg out of the hot water and she pours the water off the coffee beans into a cup. And she calls her daughter over and says, "Come here and tell me what you see." "Okay, Mom, I see carrots, an egg, and coffee. So what's up? I've got someplace I gotta be. So can you tell me what you are doing here?" And the mom says, "Now look, I want you to pay attention. This is important. Look closely. Feel these carrots." And she gives her a fork to poke them, and they're soft. And she asks her to peel the egg, and she cracks it in the shell, slides off. And then she offers her the cup of coffee and asks her to taste the deliciousness and the richness of the coffee. "Mom, what's the point?" the daughter says. So the mom says, "Sweetheart, all 3 of these things faced the same adversity. They all faced boiling water. Now the carrots went in strong and unyielding, but they came out soft and almost falling apart. The egg went in raw on the inside, hard on the outside, but liquid on the inside. And after being exposed to the adversity, it had become hardened and solid. But notice, daughter, the coffee beans were different. They experienced the same adversity, but they changed the water." So the mom steps back and says, "So which are you, my dear? Adversity is knocking on your door. Are you going to be the carrot and just become soft and crumble? Are you going to be the egg and keep this hard, stiff facade, but on the inside also become hard and unyielding? Or are you going to figure out how to actually change the adversity to your benefit and be the coffee beans?" So which are you? When adversity comes to your life, are you going to be the carrot, the egg, or the coffee beans? I will be perfectly honest and tell you there's times I've been all 3. There's times that I just fell apart and had absolutely no idea how to take the next step. And there were times that I shut myself off and became hard and unyielding. And with more tools, as I have circled the planet more times, it is easier for me to actually have an effect on the circumstances around me. And I'm sure that you have been all three as well. Here we are in this season of change. We see it all around us. The leaves are colorful but dropping off the trees every minute. The temperatures are changing. The days are shorter. The time changed today. But we can learn to lean into those changes, embrace those changes. In Isaiah, the prophet reminds us, I will lead the blind by ways they have not known. Along unfamiliar paths, I will guide them. I will turn the darkness into light before them and make the rough places smooth. These are the things I will do. I will not forsake them. This is God's promise that when we trust, understand, rest, and nurture ourselves in the experiences of life, that God, the good, will be right there with us. Let's pause for just a few minutes of reflection and meditation. Find a comfortable place. Gently close your eyes. Feel your breath in your body. And just notice what's going on in the room around you. Notice any sounds you hear, the temperature of the air, how you feel in your body. Don't try to change it. Don't try to change anything. Don't try to analyze anything. Just become present in this moment. And your thoughts will come and go. It doesn't matter what you're thinking. Just if a thought appears, just say, okay, there's a thought. If you don't resist the thought, it will not sidetrack you. Just let it flow on by. Become aware of any emotions you may be feeling. And notice how the mind wants to make a story out of those emotions and give them labels. That's okay. Just don't go with the story. Just let it be there. If you notice the emotion, if you just feel it, maybe you need to take a deeper breath. Then the emotion, you and the emotion can be together without the emotion trying to control you. And allow yourself to be aware of whatever change may be happening in your life. Just allow it to come up and be present. Notice the story around the change and the emotion around the change. And instead of pushing against it and trying to resist it, maybe just pull that idea of change into your heart space and be fully present in this moment with whatever you're experiencing. And that may bring feeling of love or peace, or it may bring a feeling of sadness. There may be a tear. There may be some fear. It doesn't matter what it is. Don't label it. Just bring it into your heart space and hold on to it gently, like you would cradle a baby. And know that you're not alone. We're in this together. And whatever you're feeling is okay. If it's frustration or excitement, or sadness or joy, you don't even have to label it. Don't name it. Just feel it. And it will move through you. It's not coming to stay. It's just coming for a moment. Simply be present with whatever is going on in your heart and in your mind in the midst of the change. And I remind you that at the core of you is something that is unchangeable. That is the Christ of you, the Spirit of God in you. The energy of life that beats your heart and breathes your lungs. The life of you. The life of you that existed before it became you. And the life of you that will live on when you are complete with your body. So no matter what is going on around you, at the core of you is your anchor. It is your peace. It is the pure essence of the infinite. So let us just drop into a place of relaxation and ease for just a few breaths as you connect with that inner core and allow all of your emotions and thoughts to just lift away. A few breaths in the silence. In the midst of change, you can bring your awareness back to your breath and be reminded of this moment of connection and oneness with the core of you. Perhaps you will make a commitment to practice again and again, being right here, right now, in this moment, in this moment, in this moment, in this moment. Because in this present moment, you are centered and not affected by the change. In this moment, you have become one with God, one with your good, and that is greater than anything that is happening outside of you. With this breath, gently begin to come back to this space and time, being gentle with you, As you feel fingers and toes and the breath in your body, open your eyes. Released from your judgment about the change and ready to lean in to a goodness that awaits you. Thank you for being with me this morning. I love you, I bless you, and I behold you as the coffee beans actually affecting the change that is happening around you. And I call it good, and I know it is. Amen.
Is our opportunity to express our gratitude and to practice the law of circulation. And as we know, just like with change, we use it to turn. We remember that in giving, whether it's service or whether it's whatever we have, our time, talent, or treasure, that we are indeed feeding ourselves at the same time. We are grateful for any of your offerings, and you can make your offering here by going to our link and donate, or being here present at the service, or actually something that we don't use all that often, which is snail mail. So thank you. Thank you all for being part of this beautiful community. Join with me in saying our prosperity blessing and hold to your heart that which you circulate. Joyously, I give this gift, knowing that the divine presence blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.